always enjoyed writing stories. The majority of my life, I've needed a way to get out the ideas and scenarios that my brain creates. Of course, when I write, I need a comfortable atmosphere for the creative juices to flow. A playlist with a name that I haven't bothered to change since I was 11. A cup of tea I made right before I sat down. In a comfortable sitting position that won't leave me sore by the time I finally decide to stop this. I've given the story the name Shadow, for I am certain that all of our brains have played tricks on us, and we've seen shadows that were not really there. Similarly to how we've seen ghosts when we played Bloody Mary as children.
It was an average day in the middle of January. A day so average that it feels like I've experienced it a million times. The temperature was stable and the sky was gray with a little chance of precipitation. And everyone seemed a little bit devoid of any emotions they have.
Of course, even the most average and boring days can bring something extraordinary to your life. Things that could change for the better or for worse. My name is Cassidy Ames, and my life somehow made a turn I would have never been able to comprehend.
It all started early in the morning when my friend Sophie Watts sat next to me.
Sophie, are you alright?
I asked. She looked really low and upset.
I feel low and upset.
She said.
I was so busy doing homework last night. I had like 1 hour of sleep.
I watched as she rubbed her temples with another groan. I lay a hand on her shoulder, trying to make her feel just a bit better.
You'll be alright.
I said.
Take a Tylenol. It should do the trick.
I watched as she took out a bottle of painkillers that she keeps in her bag for cases like this. She takes one out, pops it in her mouth, and takes a sip of water to wash it down.
We sat there talking for a while. Class wasn't starting anytime soon, so we had nowhere to be. The minutes bled on. 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, 9. At 10-minute mark, Sophie leaned over my shoulder and pointed.
What's that?
She said. What's what?
That!
She said, pointing with a bit more vigor. It took me a moment to figure out what it was exactly, but then I saw it. It was faint, which was why I had barely noticed it. But on that wall was the shadow of a person who wasn't really there.
What's it doing?
The shadow just stood there on that wall. It wasn't bothering anyone, it was just standing. But just as quickly as the shadow appeared, it was gone without a trace.
How can there be a shadow if there's no one to cast it?
To that, I only said 3 simple words. I don't know. We spent the next 2 weeks and 4 days doing as much research as we could. We weren't too sure what the shadow was or how we saw it, but we were determined to see it again. First, we watched movies and television shows to visualize different spirits and their characteristics. Second, we read articles and cases that had anything to do with the paranormal. The third and final thing we did was read different paranormal books, both fiction and not.
Cassidy, it's been almost 2 weeks and I've barely learned anything.
She groaned.
I don't want to admit it, but what if we reach a dead end?
This comment shocked me. Sophie was more enthusiastic about this than I was when we first started. It made me sad to see the spark my friend once had burn out.
Are you sure?
I asked.
The internet's a big place. I'm sure we haven't drained it of all its knowledge.
I just don't know how much more we can find if we keep going.
I tried convincing her otherwise.
How about we try 1 more week? Then we could just forget about it later.
We spent the next 2 days researching when we accidentally stumbled across a blog.
Marvin's Magical Modicum of Ghosts. That name seems familiar. Do we know him?
We did know him. Not by face, but by name. He had been in my English class a few years prior to us finding his blog. He goes to our school, I said. I don't know much about him, but I know he plays lots of indie games.
Right now, he seems like our best bet.
After organizing a meeting with Marvin, we came to get out with questions to get answers.
Excuse me, Marvin?
Yeah, Sophia and Cassandra, right?
He said as he got both of our names wrong. Yeah, close enough. We're just here to get some answers about the supernatural. He raised an eyebrow and seemed a bit confused at first. I don't think he had ever been asked a question like that and had it been genuine. And then he smiled a smile that seemed ever so slightly too wide.
Well, you've come to the right people. Ghost hunter extraordinaire Marvin and his intern, Gary.
Hello?
Silence, Gary! The professionals are talking!
Gary looked down shyly and went back to his game.
Well, ask away. I can try to answer to the best of my ability.
Well, a few weeks ago, Sophie explained our situation in great detail and in even greater time. So we emailed you, and here we are. He seemed interested in our story. I could tell. It took him a few moments to find an answer for us.
Well, it seems like you got a level 3 spirit on your hands.
Level 3 is one of the better spirits to deal with.
Level 3, what does that mean?
Well, there are 10 different types of spirits. Level 3 are the ones where they can't cause any physical harm. You just see them and they kind of stay in your brain for a while, you know?
He explained it to us in a way where I didn't have any questions. Sophie, on the other hand.
Well, like, we don't really care about that, but, like, how do we see them again?
Marvin had full intention in answering, but Gary beat him to it.
You need a seance. That's for sure. The lower the level, the easier they are. You need a candle and a rune. But those are pretty easy to find. And Marvin can give you those to you easily, so. No one's stopping you, right?
Marvin seemed a bit upset that Gary had stolen the spotlight from him.
Thank you, Gary.
Marvin reached behind his back and pulled out 3 objects. First one was a candle. The second was a folded piece of paper. And the third was a leather-bound book.
This for the seance?
She asked.
What else? Everything you need to know is on page 65. Just study it in your spare time and you'll be fine.
Well, thanks, I guess.
We decided to wait a few weeks before we performed the seance. What had held us back? Uncertainty, anxiety, fear, probably a mix of all 3. Are you ready? I asked.
I hope so. Better do it now, or else I'll never do it. No?
Sophie began to read the incantation from the piece of folded paper. It sounded like gibberish, none that I've ever heard before. My body grew more and more agitated. The more tension grew and grew, like a pot of pasta about to overflow. Sophie's voice grew louder and louder until she stopped.
Did it work?
Cassidy Ames and Sophie Watts died together on that gray day in February. They were soon rushed to the hospital, where they were announced dead and later cremated. The doctors and nurses told their parents that they had suffered a heart attack, but the girls had never had any heart-related issues in the past. Perhaps it was something otherworldly, something they would never be able to comprehend.